Episode 1, The Breath in the Confession Room. I heard God before I saw him. He wasn't speaking. He was breathing. It began on my third night back in Hollifield. The town smelled the same damp soil, dying leaves, and the faint sweetness of candle wax from the old church at the hill. I hadn't stepped inside the church since my husband's funeral. Yet something pulled me there. The priest, Father Callum, greeted me with eyes too still to be alive. "The Lord misses your prayers," he said, his breath cold even in the warmth of the candles. I nodded, trembling, and entered the confession booth, the same one I'd used as a child. The air inside was stale. But then, a sound broke the silence. A long inhale. Deep. Wet. Patient. It wasn't human. It was heavier, older, as if the walls themselves had lungs. Each exhale brushed my neck like a sigh from behind the wooden grill. I froze, whispering a prayer that came out broken. "Father?" I asked. But no one answered. Only that breath, slow, deliberate, inhaling my words like smoke. When I stumbled out, pale and shaking, Father Callum was gone. The candles had melted into pools of red. I ran outside, clutching my chest. Later, the caretaker told me the confession booth had been sealed for 30 years. The priest who last used it had died inside, suffocated mid-prayer. That night, I couldn't sleep. Because every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again. That holy, endless breath inside my own lungs. Episode 2, The Priest Without a Pulse. The next morning, the town looked smaller, as if the fog itself was closing in to keep me here. I told myself what I heard was grief, nothing more. But the mirror disagreed. My lips were pale, my veins darkened, and when I exhaled, the glass fogged, twice. At church, Father Callum waited for me. He stood in the same place as last night, hands folded, smile fixed like something carved. "I was worried about you, child," he said softly. His voice was calm, but his chest didn't move. No rise. No breath. I tried to speak, but my throat tightened. You were the priest who died here," I whispered. He tilted his head. "Death is a language, Eleanor. And I'm fluent now." Then he turned, walking down the aisle. The floorboards creaked under every step except his. I followed him into the nave, but halfway there, the candles went out. The only light came from the crucifix, flickering like a pulse trying to return. I heard the sound again, that breathing, echoing through the walls, syncing with my heartbeat. When the lights returned, Father Callum was gone. In his place stood the old confessional door, newly unsealed. On it, carved deep into the wood, was a single phrase written in Latin. "Respira pro me." Breathe for me. That night, my dreams were full of lungs, enormous, glistening, divine. And somewhere between their inhale and mine, I realized I was starting to breathe for him. Episode 3, God's Whisper Smells Like Rust. The third night, the breathing followed me home. It hid in the corners of my house, under the ticking clock, behind the humming fridge, between my own heartbeats. Every sound seemed to carry a pulse that wasn't mine. When I tried to pray, the air trembled, and a low whisper exhaled through the walls like a sigh from something ancient and starved. I recorded it. I don't know why, maybe to prove I wasn't losing my mind. But when I played the audio back, I heard more than just breathing. There was a faint rasp, like words forming inside the inhale. I opened the file in a sound program. The spectrogram showed a shape, not random noise, not static. It was a pair of lungs. And they were moving. That same night, I returned to the church. The pews glistened with something sticky and dark. The air reeked of rust and salt. I touched one of the benches, my fingers came away red. At the altar, the crucifix was weeping. Thin trails of blood, or something like it, dripped from the nails. And then I smelled it again, that warm, wet, metallic scent I'd only smelled once before. The day my husband died in my arms. Behind me, the confession booth creaked open by itself. And the breath inside whispered, "You're getting closer, Eleanor. Don't stop listening." Episode 4, The Miracle That Ate the Choir. Sunday came, and with it, the children. They sang in voices too pure for this dying town, hymns about mercy, redemption, and breath. Always breath. Father Callum stood before them, pale and motionless, conducting without moving his hands. The notes trembled in the air like something alive. I sat in the back pew, clutching my rosary. Each verse made the candles shiver. The sound wasn't music anymore, it was a vibration, a hum deep enough to rattle the bones beneath the floor. The children's faces began to change. Eyes rolled white, mouths stretched too wide, and their throats pulsed like living pipes. Then came the silence. Sharp, absolute. Father Callum lowered his head. "A miracle," he whispered. "They've been taken into his breath." The choir stalls were empty. No one had left. No one had screamed. They were simply gone. Only their robes remained, swaying gently as if something invisible had inhaled. I ran to the altar, choking on the thick, copper air. A low hum filled the nave, coming from the floor itself. When I pressed my ear against the tiles, I heard them, the children, still singing, but from somewhere inside the walls. I stumbled back, horrified, as the crucifix exhaled a faint cloud of mist. It smelled of candle wax and milk. Father Callum turned toward me, eyes hollow and wet. "They're closer to God now," he said. "Closer than you'll ever be unless you breathe deep enough to join them." Episode 5, The Bible That Still Breathes. I couldn't step foot in that church again. Not after what I saw. But the sound followed me down every hallway, through every breath I took. It was no longer outside me. It was with me. Inside. The next evening, I found something strange on my porch, an old Bible wrapped in white cloth, soaked through as if someone had pulled it from a grave. No note. No footprints. Just the faint smell of incense and iron. When I brought it inside, the book pulsed faintly, like a weak heartbeat. Its cover was warm. I pressed my palm against it. It rose and fell. It was breathing. I told myself it was just nerves, that grief had turned my senses cruel. But when I opened it, each page exhaled. The air that came out was warm and familiar. I knew that scent. My husband's cologne. His breath on my neck the night before he died. My eyes filled with tears. I whispered his name, trembling. The words on the page began to shift, letters crawling like insects. They rearranged into a single line. He borrowed my breath to say goodbye. The Bible's pages began to flutter rapidly, faster and faster, until the sound became a wheeze. Then silence. From the doorway, Father Callum's voice drifted in, calm, cold, and tender. "He speaks to you now, Eleanor. Don't you feel him? Every inhale is a prayer, every exhale, an offering." I dropped the Bible. It hit the floor and split open, still breathing. Episode 6, The Night God Coughed. It started with a tremor in the air. A sound too deep to be thunder, too close to be wind. The same rhythmic breathing I'd come to dread, but now broken. Uneven. Struggling. I was lying in bed when I heard it, a wet, rattling cough echoing through the walls. Then again, closer. The crucifix above my bed swayed slightly, as though moved by someone exhaling from behind it. And then, someone outside screamed. By the time I reached the window, the town was waking in panic. Lights flickered on, doors burst open, and one by one, people fell to their knees, clutching their throats. They gasped, choking on air that suddenly seemed too thick, too heavy. Across the street, old Mrs. Halley collapsed on her porch. A thick mist escaped her mouth, white, holy, and steaming. For a moment, I saw faces inside it, like prayers escaping in agony. The coughing grew louder, vibrating through every window pane. I realized it wasn't coming from one person. The sound came from everywhere. From the church. From the soil. From the sky itself. And then I felt it, my own chest tightening, lungs refusing to move unless something else allowed them to. I fell to my knees, gasping, the world spinning as my breath turned cold. Through the noise, Father Callum's voice rose, clear, commanding, almost joyous. "He's sick, Eleanor. The divine breath is dying, and he's using us to heal." I screamed, but no air came out. Only mist, white and trembling, forming words I couldn't bear to read. And for the first time, I heard God choke. Episode 7, The Autopsy of a Prayer. When morning came, the whole town smelled of medicine and decay. Hospitals overflowed with bodies that looked asleep, lips blue, lungs collapsed like paper bags. The doctors said it was some airborne illness. But I knew better. I'd heard it breathing long before it began to kill. Father Callum had vanished again. In his place, I found a trail of damp footprints leading down into the church crypt. Against every scream inside my head, I followed. The air beneath was wet, heavy, alive. Along the walls, old medical charts hung beside crucifixes, half rotted, half preserved. I brushed the dust off one and froze. St. Augustine Sanatorium, 1893. Patients, tuberculosis. Status, buried beneath holy ground. I stumbled deeper and saw what the church had been built over, the remnants of a forgotten ward. Iron beds fused into the stone, rusted breathing masks still attached. Each mask pulsed faintly, releasing small sighs of mist into the air. My stomach turned. The divine breath wasn't holy. It was human. Thousands of trapped lungs, still exhaling after death, feeding the illusion of a living God. Then I found it, a morgue slab, freshly used. A body under a blood-stained sheet. My hands trembled as I pulled it back. Father Callum. Eyes open, mouth agape, ribs split wide as if something had clawed its way out. His chest was empty. No organs. Only a hollow space, still breathing. Behind me, the walls groaned. A chorus of lungs exhaled in unison. And from the dark, a voice whispered. "You opened him, Eleanor. Now, open yourself." Episode 8, The Voice Inside the Lung. I left the crypt before dawn, barefoot and bleeding. The fog outside the church clung to my skin like it wanted to crawl inside. Every breath hurt, a sharp, wet sound echoing beneath my ribs. It wasn't my heartbeat I heard anymore. It was his. That night, I dreamed of the sanatorium again, the rows of iron beds, the walls pulsing like veins. But this time, one of the beds was mine. When I opened my eyes, the dream hadn't ended. The room around me breathed. The curtains inhaled. The floor exhaled. And something inside my chest whispered. "You are not sick, Eleanor. You are becoming." I ran to the mirror. My reflection fogged before I even breathed. My chest rose and then rose again, twice, as if another pair of lungs lived beneath my own. I pressed my hands against my ribs. Something pressed back. In the distance, the church bell rang 12 times, slow and hollow. With each toll, the air inside me vibrated, shaping words I couldn't understand. It was like listening to a God whisper through meat. Then my phone began to ring. No number. Just a sound on the other end, breathing, deep and familiar. And then, my husband's voice. Faint, trembling, alive. Eleanor, he said, he's inside you now. Don't fight it. Just breathe. He's been waiting for someone who can carry him. The line went dead. But the voice didn't. It stayed whispering from somewhere deep within my lungs, syncing perfectly with every breath I took. Episode 9, The Breath That Kills Silence. By the 9th night, silence had become impossible. The world itself had learned to breathe. Pipes moaned softly under the floorboards. The wind carried whispers that weren't wind at all. Even the graves in the churchyard sighed when I passed. Every exhale in Hollifield belonged to him now. I tried not to listen, but the breath was everywhere, weaving through the air like a hymn that couldn't end. When I plugged my ears, I heard it from inside. When I held my breath, something deep within my lungs continued without me. I thought I was alone in this, until I saw the others. At the grocery store, at the gas station, people moving in slow rhythm, eyes glazed, chests rising and falling in perfect unison. Every inhale matched mine. Every exhale followed. The town had become one giant lung, breathing with me, through me. Then came the coughing, hundreds of voices choking together, bending in pain yet singing in devotion. I fell to my knees as a new pulse filled the air, steady, mechanical, divine. My breath no longer belonged to me. In the reflection of the store window, I saw my face a pale, veins dark like roots spreading across my neck. My mouth opened on its own, releasing a white mist that shaped words before me. He is almost whole. The ground trembled. Every house, every wall, every living thing exhaled as one. The town fell silent, perfectly still, waiting for the next inhale. But it didn't come. And for the first time in days, I realized something unholy. God wasn't breathing anymore. I was. Episode 10, The Woman Who Became God's Breath. I woke before sunrise, gasping, not because I couldn't breathe, but because I could no longer stop. Every inhale burned, every exhale came out heavy and warm, as though the air itself had weight. My chest rose and fell on its own, guided by something vast and unseen. The town was silent. The fog that had blanketed Hollifield for weeks was gone. In its place hung a stillness too deep to belong to earth. The church bell, cracked and blackened, rang by itself. 10 times. Slow. Final. I followed the sound. Inside the church, the walls pulsed like a heartbeat. The pews were gone, melted into a single shape, a breathing mass of wood and flesh, inhaling softly. From within it came hundreds of voices whispering my name. Father Callum stood before the altar, or what was left of him. His body shimmered like smoke, his mouth open but unmoving. He chose you, he whispered, though his lips never stirred. You were always meant to carry his breath. The air thickened. I fell to my knees. My lungs expanded until I thought they'd tear. The world tilted. The candles all went out, not from wind, but from an enormous inhale that came from me. And then, silence. I opened my eyes to find the church gone. The streets empty. Only a faint warmth filled the air, echoing softly from within my chest, rhythmic, eternal. When he finally stopped breathing, I realized the truth. It was never God inside me. It was everyone. Now the world breathes through me, and when you pray, when you sigh, when you whisper in the dark, I feel it. And I breathe you back. Epilogue, the confession that never ends. They found Hollifield weeks later empty, silent, untouched. Every door unlocked, every clock stopped at the same hour, 3:17 a.m. The townspeople were gone. All of them. Not a single body. Not a single sound. But the church still stood. When the investigators entered, they said it felt alive. The air inside was warm, like the breath of a sleeping animal. The pews gleamed with moisture. The crucifix swayed gently though there was no wind. And in the confession booth, the one sealed for decades, the recorder they'd placed there captured something strange. At first, nothing but static. Then, faintly, the sound of breathing. Slow. Calm. Followed by a woman's voice, quiet, trembling, almost loving. "Forgive me, Father, for I have become." Then a pause. A soft inhale. Can you hear it too? Moments later, every candle in the church went out on its own. The audio ended there. But those who've listened to the recording say it changes each time. Sometimes, the breath grows faster, like it's learning. Sometimes, you can hear your own breathing layered within it. And once, just once, a listener swore the voice whispered his name. Now, when the wind moves through Hollifield, it doesn't whistle. It exhales. And if you stand very still, you can feel it warm and human. Breathing just behind your ear.